Happy Monday, all you minties. This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition. And join me today for your advanced look at The Incredible Hulk by Peter David Omnibus Volume 4 from Marvel Comics. Let's get started. And welcome back, everybody. Before getting started, I want to give a huge thank you to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us an advanced copy of this omnibus. This omnibus is due out in the direct market and book market on May 24th or 25th, depending on where you get your books. Now, I have had some of my viewers send me pictures of the book that they've already received if they live overseas, in Canada or in Europe. So that's awesome. Sometimes books get out there earlier than they do here. But I like to play it safe and don't do these overviews until about the week that these books are due out. So nobody's tempted with spoilers, or that many anyway. Yes, this one, this brings it back home a little bit, and I'll talk a little bit about that here in a second. But what we're looking at here is the direct market cover. On the left-hand side is your standard edition cover by Mike Deodato Jr. The direct market cover here is drawn by Adam Kubert. And between the two, I had to go with this one. I've always loved this, almost the transformation of the Hulk to Bruce Banner. But really quickly, let's take a look at the spine. Here we have The Incredible Hulk by Peter David, Volume 4. There's a Mike Deodato picture down there of the Hulk. The back of the book showcasing the covers that are collected in here. The end of an era, and that is the end of an era indeed. But there is more material. I'm going to talk a little bit about that here in a second when we open this up. $125. Here's all the content that's collected in there. Rated T+. But before I go any further, I just want you to sit back and take all this in. Look at those beautiful spines. And I realize the direct market and standard edition spines have different pictures on them. But just this right here, the logo that they kept intact throughout the entire omnibus run. This, for me, brings it back home because The Incredible Hulk by Peter David Omnibus Volume 1 was very, very near and dear to my heart, as this was the book that I asked David Gabriel during our first conversation on the phone, why is it that we don't have a Peter David Omnibus Volume 1? How is that possible? The following day, I got an email saying, okay, you can announce this. And that was my very first announcement. I'm not sure if you all remember, for those of you that have been following me for a long time, for years now, my very first announcement was the Annihilation Omnibus reprint and Daredevil by Bendis reprint and Incredible Hulk by Peter David Volume 1. And it's funny because there were so many people that in the comments, and then I saw it shared in forums, that they were pretty much just like, who is this guy? Like, he doesn't work for Marvel. How could he be announcing things like, this isn't possible, this isn't going to happen? And then I look at this, and it just puts a big smile on my face. Just kind of bringing it back home. Because, yeah, of course, they have every right to question me. I was just a guy in my basement. Still a guy in my basement. Now just a little more official than I was a few years ago. But just looking at this, wow. And to think about, like, the future things we could have later on, like Captain America by Mark Gruenwald, some Tom DeFalco Thor would be great, or Fantastic Four, Roger Stern on Avengers, just to have something like that for those legendary creators on the shelf. My goodness. This is 11 to 12 years worth of work for somebody, and that is Peter David. So, enough about this. Sorry, I get a little nostalgic about this run because it means so much to me. But let's take a look at this book right here, Under the Dust Jacket. So they did what they've been doing recently. They put the standard edition cover here, the spine with no picture, and then on the back is the direct market cover. All right. Let's take a trip down memory lane, talk about the final issues of Peter David's run on The Incredible Hulk, talk about what else could be collected, and where this leaves off. Is it a good ending point to his run? Okay, let's get this book opened. I have some black end paper there. Hulk by Peter David. This is an image by Salvador LaRocca from Heroes Return. Mike Deodato right there. Looks like Hulk is about to punch the logo. Here are all the credits for the writers, because of course Peter David is not alone. For the pencilers, the inkers, the colorists, the letters. Love that they have the editors at the time. I guess that's the logo punching the crap out of Hulk, knocking him out. Here is your table of contents over here and on the right hand side. I will say maybe it's my old age, but I think I had the same issue with the previous volumes, that it is a little bit harder to read the blue on the gray here. And it kicks it off with Savage Hulk one-shot. This is the book that came out in 1996. So this does collect Savage Hulk, the one-shot. Incredible Hulk 436 to 467. The -1 issue. Cutting Edge 1, number 1. Cable number 34. Onslaught Marvel Universe number 1. I swear that book has been collected just about everywhere. And it's just about every Omnibus or Epic collection has that book. I guess it's because it's so important. Incredible Hulk, Hercules Unleashed. And if I'm not mistaken, that's the one that's dedicated to Mark Grunwald. And then Heroes Reborn, The Return 4-issue miniseries, which has had its own omnibus. So we kick it off with Savage Hulk. This is just kind of like a flashback story told through a trial of the Incredible Hulk. There are pages in here. Let me see if Dave Gibbons gets to write his own little part. Mike McKone and Peter David actually working on the trial. I love that the judge is named Judge Lieber, which, of course, that is Stan Lee's real name. His name was Stan Lee Martin Lieber. And here's some Sam Keith artwork. Back to McKone. And the book has 1,248 pages. This is some Humberto Ramos artwork. So then we move on to the ongoing series with a new penciler. This is Tim Sell and Jeff Loeb, long before Hulk Gray. But let's get to the... this is the pin-up stuff here from Savage Hulk. Surprised they didn't put that all the way in the back. Alright, so we kick off this omnibus with a brand new artist. This is Angel Medina, who went on to do some stuff for Image. He has a very McFarlane art style. He came from Warlock and the Infinity Watch. And this is Ghost of the Future. So a follow-up to the Future Imperfect storyline, which introduces us to this Hulk that is living in the future and that is now known as Maestro. And he's kind of overruling this apocalyptic world. Now, there are some interesting things that happen here. We have the character, this one right here. This is almost like a legacy character. This is Major Matt Talbot, and he's the nephew of Glenn Talbot, who was an enemy of the Hulk who had passed away years prior to this. And then we also, for the first time, I get to talk about a character named Omnibus. That's right, there is a character named Omnibus. They're doing two different things. Talbot's bringing in the military, these characters to take down the Hulk. So they have like their own Hulkbuster. There he is. And then Omnibus is planning nuclear strikes all around the world, like especially like Mount Rushmore and places like that. This is the Cutting Edge issue, which is written by William Messner Loebs and drawn by Angel Medina and Paul Pelletier, who eventually took over the Hulk book many years, long after this. But let's go back to this. So yes, you have the character, oh my gosh, his name is Omnibus. He's sort of like your successor to the leader. And the leader's kind of talking through him and manipulating how he does things, how Omnibus does things. But I thought that was awesome that this is the first time I get to talk about a character named Omnibus. And I'm talking about the Hulk Omnibus. Very cool. I think I'm the only one that probably appreciates something like that. So yes, this is sort of like the return of Maestro, but is it really? And it's a Hulk against the Maestro. The other interesting thing to note about this particular era of the Hulk is during this time, the Hulk maintains Banner's intelligence, yet when he becomes enraged, so he savages out, he turns back into Bruce Banner, who has the mind of the Savage Hulk. So it's kind of a failsafe to keep people safe. When he's driven to turn into the Savage Hulk, it prevents the Savage Hulk from coming out and just hurting people. So I thought that was an interesting take on the character. And of course, you know, everything with the Hulk is temporary. It doesn't matter what run you're reading. And we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the things that happened throughout this run that got interrupted by, of course, a big crossover, a Marvel event. Now, the Hulk is temporarily taken out of commission, Bruce Banner, and we have the Incredible She-Hulk. And there's a team up here with Doc Samson, but I do love this Pulp Fiction cover. Let me see if I can find it. I've always been a fan of that Pulp Fiction cover. But yes, it's the Incredible She-Hulk, and it's only that for a couple of issues. It would have been interesting to see where that story went. We have the return of Janice right here, who comes back from the Future Imperfect storyline to try to find Bruce Banner. Again, all of this drawn by Angel Medina. And here is kind of like, okay, we have to stop this story because we have to talk about Onslaught. So here's the Onslaught crossover, and one of the reasons why Peter David ended up leaving the Hulk book, just because there's too much crossovers, mandates, and things like that. He does respect the fact that your book sold better during big crossover events. He talked about that many times when talking about X Factor. But back then, they kept interrupting the flow of his story. But this is the big fight between Cable and Hulk. And this is drawn by Ian Churchill, leading to the crossover with this issue right here. Angel Medina, and then more Onslaught, which leads to the big Marvel Universe. Here we go. Onslaught. Now, something important does happen through here because we have to talk about this. I've talked about it on my channel several times, but just in case you're not familiar with what Onslaught did, or the event rather, was they used it kind of as an excuse to get rid of some characters that they were leasing out to the original image creators, some of the original image creators. So you had Captain America, the Avengers, and Iron Man, and the Fantastic Four go over to Jim Lee, Whilce Portacio, and Rob Liefeld. Now, when this was coming out, the big rumor was the Incredible Hulk was going to get canceled. But fans petitioned that it did not get canceled because it just meant so much to us. As it was coming out, it was one of the best books coming out, even with the forced crossovers. So they decided to keep it going. And how they decided to keep this going while still taking the Hulk to this Heroes Reborn universe, as we call it now, well, Onslaught is so powerful that he manages to break the persona of the Hulk into two. So Bruce Banner and the Hulk are split. And this isn't that big of a spoiler because, I thought about giving a spoiler warning, but then again, I think it's important to talk about why things happen here, and I can't talk about it without this particular scene. So the Hulk and Bruce Banner are split. Bruce Banner, yep, that's my sound when he goes to another universe. It's like me, like a vacuum cleaner. Anyway, he gets absorbed into this Heroes Reborn universe, and the creature, the Hulk, stays in our universe. So how do you continue telling stories here? By the way, this is drawn by Adam Kubert and Joe Bennett, two people that will eventually work on the Hulk. So how do you keep telling stories about a mindless monster if Bruce Banner is gone? Well, that kicks off the new era of the Incredible Hulk with Mike Deodato Jr. And Peter David, being the master that he is, manages to still tell a story about the Incredible Hulk and what he's managed to absorb from Bruce Banner. Now, he is a different character at this time. He's not the same Hulk that we were reading about before Onslaught, but that's okay because the Hulk is ever-changing. So his relationship with Betty changes, and he goes on more secret missions. He does his own thing. Mike Deodato in his studio was just everywhere during this time. This is the one with Hercules. It's more like a flashback issue because Hercules during this time looks like this. There he is with Deathcry. That was the Bob Harris era of the Avengers. But it's a flashback, and then we get this modern fight here. It shows Zeus. But the very last page, of course, is the dedication to the legendary Mark Grunwald. And you gotta respect that. He lost him way too young, all too mortal, all too soon, all too missed. Fact. Man. And then we get this issue right here. Like, there's so many things that are happening still. Even though this is the tail end of Peter David's run on Hulk, so many things are being thrown our way. This is the introduction of the Thunderbolts. So in here you get to meet Mach 1, Techno, Meteorite, Atlas, Songbird, and Citizen V. These new heroes that are coming to take the Hulk and arrest him. Who are they? Well, go and read Thunderbolts because it's completely worth it. And then eventually Mike Deodato, sticks to the book for a while. and he ends up leaving the book. Janice is still around. Here is the annual. And the thing about the annual that I liked is this is Adam Polina on cover, who at the time was drawing X-Force. And then we have a little story here by Kevin Lau, who eventually went over to X-Force. See, I remember him having a very anime look to his art. I mean, obviously. Right? Look at Gene's face. Man, that was crazy to have back then. Some pinups, and then some more Hulk. Back to the Hulk. Now here we have, people going after the Hulk. Hulk wants to be left alone. He's hanging out with Janice. And, of course, he can't be left alone. And we have a lot of kind of hints as to, hey, remember Bruce Banner that went into another universe? Well, that universe is out there somewhere. He didn't just disappear. There's this other Hulk out there. So we have, not just in the pages of The Incredible Hulk, but in the pages of just about every Marvel comic, we've had some kind of, like Jean tapping into the Heroes Reborn universe, Doctor Strange or Iron Man. And then we have a new ongoing artist, and this is Adam Kubert. When he took over the book from the pages of Wolverine, he came over to Hulk and started working with Peter David. And this might sound weird, but to me, this was my favorite work that Adam Kubert ever did. I thought he had found a perfect mix of like cartoony mixed with that classic Joe Kubert art, his father's school. I loved his run on Wolverine. I thought his run on Wolverine was great. It's still one of the best runs on Wolverine. But by the time we get to here, we have this like cartoony art style, less details on his art, and more controls and use of shadows and lights. I thought that was perfect. Just a perfect blend of what I wanted to see. This is the -1 issue right here, which of course works as a flashback issue to talk about the past of the Incredible Hulk. We have a lot of X-Men guest stars because, X-Men sell. So much so that we have Apocalypse coming in and recruiting the Incredible Hulk to be one of his horsemen. War. There's time travel elements in here. Joe Kubert gets to draw some of this stuff. We'll get there in a little bit. We get to fight with the Juggernaut here. But yeah, Joe Kubert comes in and actually draws, pencils, and inks some of this stuff. We have returning villains that come back. And then we get to the big Heroes Reborn, the Return miniseries. Which, like I said, if you want to know a little bit more about this, you can check the link above, because I actually talk about it in depth when doing an overview of the Omnibus. But I feel like it was important to collect it in here, because this gives you the new status quo of the Hulk, of course. I mean, they're not going to stay separated forever, right? So, pretty sure most of you know where this is going. And then we get sort of the final issues of the Hulk. But before I get to the final issues of the Hulk, I did want to showcase some of this Joe Kubert art. Like, it's so cool to see him. Yeah, here we go. Penciling and inking, along with his son. And they were doing this quite a bit. Him and Andy, and then him and Adam were doing this quite a bit through the pages of, like, Spirits of Vengeance, Ghost Rider, even Ultimate X-Men had some of this. Thought it was great. This is the Armageddon storyline with Silver Surfer. Bouncing to the extras here in the very, very, very back. We have some interviews and some articles on the upcoming Ghost of the Future story arc. An interview with Angel Medina. I think, what did he end up... Oh, he ended up drawing Spawn. Here is Marvel Vision's interview and the covers featuring the Hulk. 30 minutes with Peter David. I'd like 30 minutes with Peter David myself. Love interviewing that guy. This is a poster here from 1995, as well as this one here. This one's awesome. I've always liked that. I remember seeing that at a comic book store. And this is a variant cover. Or, I'm sorry, this is the Hulk Magazine #1 by Adam Kubert. This is an Angel Medina house ad. And pencils by Adam Kubert there. Wizard Magazine. Here's a variant, which we didn't really have a lot of variants, believe it or not, at that time for monthly issues. Usually variants were limited to like #1s or special anniversary issues. Here's the Heroes Return variant covers, which you've seen those in the actual Heroes Return Omnibus Wizard cover. Thunderbolts #1, even though it's not really. This is the prelude to Thunderbolts. And back here I'm so glad they're keeping these, in case you're upgrading from the Epic Collection. But these are the afterwords by Ralph Macchio, who was editor at the time, on the different Epic Collections, as well as the Hulk, Beauty, and Behemoth trade paperback. Introduction and afterword by Peter David. I suggest not looking at that until you read the big finale here. As far as the binding of the book, it is sewn binding, and here is what the eye looks like. This is printed at the iMac printer, but I think from the recent new printing of JMS's Spider-Man, and comparing it to this, like the paper, it's a little bit thicker here. There are a lot of spread pages throughout this era of the Hulk. I will say that. So the gutter loss is very minimal, but it's still there, especially through spread pages. I'm trying to show a couple here, but let me see if I can find one towards the beginning. And not really a spread page, but kind of give you an idea of just a little bit of gutter loss that you're going to be having here, towards the beginning and towards the very back. Now, I'm going to stay away from the back, just because I'm sure a lot of people don't know, what ends up happening. But the biggest question I'm sure I'm going to be asked in the comment section, and I'm just going to go ahead and answer it, is this a good ending for the 12-year run that Peter David had on the book? Absolutely. 100%. Now, there's enough stories to collect in another omnibus. I mean, we still have Hulk the End. We have all the Maestro series, Tempest Fugit, things like that could be collected in a Volume 5 or a companion omnibus. To me, superhero stories never end. Superheroes are these mythical beings whose stories will outlive me, will outlive you, whoever's watching this. I mean, no offense. We're never going to live forever. Well, I don't know. Maybe some of us will. And Peter David manages to achieve what I think is the impossible. His run, to me, is the best run on the Hulk. Mainly it's driven by the genius that he is, and pure adrenaline, and the ambition to make this book stand out, be more of a superhero book. And he manages to do that with the last story arc. I want to talk about the last two stories in here. Without going into spoilers, I'm not even going to show any artwork, but they are beautifully drawn by Adam Kubert. They hit me, man. That final issue still hits me in the feels the way that it's done, because it's done perfect. Peter David likes to write a lot of himself in here through the eyes of Rick Jones. I don't know if anybody caught that reading the previous volumes or not, but that's Peter David. Rick Jones is Peter David, because he's kind of like your middle-of-the-road guy. He's been on adventures, yet he's not that special, but he is one of the most special beings on the planet. So, to write an ending for a character just is impossible. So he writes an ending to a story. I mean, the thing you have to realize is that, what I was saying earlier, these characters will never die. A character never dies. So, is it really a character, or is it still a franchise? If the story never ends, does it stop being less of a story, or is it a franchise? And these are questions I would ask myself when I was in my 20s. I think I wrote a term paper on this. But Peter David does give us a satisfying bookend to his amazing run on the Hulk. He wraps up just about everything that he started. Of course, a few things got retconned a little bit, but that's okay. That's what happens when you're working for a company and, you have editors that are like, no, we want to make the story go this way. We don't think that's going to work. We get a finale. And it is a finale that only Peter David could deliver. If you've read this adventure from the very beginning of his first omnibus, you will feel it. It will hit you in the feels. It will hit you in the soul. You'll feel it in your heart. You will shed a tear. If you know what I'm talking about, if you've read it, you know what happens here. And you will go through the motions with the creature known as the Hulk. It's one of the best wrap-ups he's ever gotten for a character. I know that's unfair to say, because most of the time he gets pulled from books. But it's a good send-off. It's his way of saying goodbye to this character and leaving us heartbroken at the end, along with him, because that's what it feels like, I'm sure, for a creator to break away from something that has been a part of his life for the last decade or so. So yeah, that's all I will say about it. To me, it was a satisfying ending. And I don't do reviews when talking about these stories, but I feel like that's a question people are going to ask me. Is it a good ending for what started at the very beginning? You're damn right it is, in my eyes. Now, there was enough, of course, material after this. The Hulk continued all the way up until issue 474. I believe that's Joe Kelly's final issue before the series got revamped. And then, of course, that got canceled. Volume 1 got canceled, and then John Byrne kicked it off with Hulk Volume 2, which led to Bruce Jones. Eventually, Peter David did come back for a little bit. Then we got Greg Pak, Planet Hulk, and all that. I've done a Hulk reading order. You can watch that to see where these stories go. But yes, to answer question 1, it's absolutely worth it. To answer question 2, is there going to be any more Omnibus, a companion or anything? Well, if you've been watching the channel for a while, you already know the answer to that. If you're interested in purchasing this omnibus, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this book. Let me know in the comments down below if you are picking it up, if you've read any of Peter David's Hulk, what you think about it, if you're hoping that they will do more of Peter David's Hulk in omnibus format. I mean, we've got enough material. And what your favorite Hulk run would be to be collected in omnibus format. I mean, there's several ways they could go. We could go with a modern run like Al Ewing's run, some of my favorites like Bill Mantlo and Bruce Jones, or go back to the classics with a Volume 2 of the Silver Age. This was the Uncanny Omar. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, ring that bell for notifications. We are on Patreon and on Spreadshop. Amazing ways to support the channel if you can do so. And more importantly, everyone stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.